Sorry about that. I was on a phone call, but I'm off now.
That's okay, because now we are live. Hello, everyone. This is Deborah Jones. I'm your Blue Table Talk host,
Let
along
me
with
get
my
my audio.
co-host, Toya Ozan. Hi, Toya. How are you today?
Hello, how are you guys?
Fine. It's so good to see you in the daylight instead of nighttime. And so, today we're going to be talking to candidate for mayor, Roy West. Hey, Roy, how you doing today?
I am doing so well, and I thank y'all for allowing to do this during the daytime because I know this is not the normal time. And I have just, since we're so close to the election, I have things going on every night. So
Yeah.
it was, but hey, I thank y'all, and I look forward to the podcast with y'all and catching up with you before about our sons being buddies and knowing your sons. So it's a small world.
It's a small world. It's a small world. I want to thank you for accepting the invitation to Blue Table Talk. And I want to apologize to you about because you were supposed to be on like 2 weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago, and something happened. But God's had His own timing, so this is God's time. So appreciate that.
Thank you.
Okay, before we talk to Rod, let's talk about early voting. Early voting is April 24th through May the 2nd, and the locations are Rogers Park Community Center, Jefferson County Courthouse in the lobby. We have John Paul Davis on East Lucas Street, and also Theodore John Library on Fournette Road. April 24th, the doors will open on Monday through Friday from 8 to 5. April 29th, which is a Saturday, the doors will open from 8 to 5 as well. April the 30th, which is Sunday, which is from the pews to the pole, it will be open from 12 noon to 5 p.m. May the 1st through the 2nd, Monday and Tuesday, it will open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And we all know that May 6th is election day, and it will open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. So get out there and vote. You have plenty time to vote. Whether you do early voting or the day of the election, you have plenty of time to vote. Go out there and vote, and because that is your voice. And if you don't vote, we don't, you can't say anything about who's in what position because you didn't vote. That's all I gotta say on that one. So, with that being said, we're gonna go ahead and talk to our candidate for election for mayor, and which is Roy West. Roy, I know a lot of people might know of you, but they don't really know you. So, give us a little synopsis of an introduction for us.
Yes, ma'am. Well, my name is Roy West, as you said, and I was born and raised here in Beaumont, Texas. So, and I'm 62 years old. So I was born in 1960. And I graduated high school here, graduated Lamar University as well. I did live in Houston for about 5 years in the 80s and went off to school in Dallas for 3 years back in 2001 to 2004. But the rest of the time I've been here, I'm in the mortgage business. So I do home loans. That's how we make a living day to day. I've also had my own radio show on KLVI for 13 years. It's just 1 hour a week. And then I own some real estate, some commercial and residential real estate here in town. So, this community's been great to me. I'm married. Trish and I, we have 5 adult children. 4 of them are married. 3 of those married ones live here in Beaumont. Mm-hmm. And 6 of my 8 grandbabies live here in Beaumont. Okay. And so I've got a lot of family here in town. I'm very invested in Beaumont, and Beaumont's been very good to me. And really just through seasons of life, I've reached a time in my life where I can give back more to the community because I have a son-in-law that came in to work with me in the mortgage business. So he kind of takes care of the day-to-day operations because running for office, and I think doing the office, even though it's a part-time job, it's pretty much full-time. And I've committed full-time to my campaign, mm-hmm. as well as hopefully when I get elected in order to serve the people of Beaumont. Right. So I'll certainly answer any questions. I could say a lot more, but I'll pause and let y'all guide it so that I don't overtalk here.
That's okay. I love people when they talk. Well, why run for mayor?
Well, I will say my whole life, I've learned that when there's a problem, that there's an opportunity there. And in the mortgage business, we do home loans. That's how we make our money. But
Right.
really what we do is we solve problems. So I learned years ago, and I've had some other businesses, when there's problems, if I go to where the problem is, oftentimes people appreciate that you showed up because there's a problem and the problem's already there. Okay. And secondly, it's a problem. If it was easy to solve, it wouldn't be a problem. It wouldn't be the situation we're in where we're having to deal with it. So, nobody necessarily expects you to have an answer, but they appreciate you're there to help solve a problem and that you showed up. Because a lot of people, when there's problems, they just leave. They want to get away from them because they don't want to get associated with them. And secondly, is when you show up, oftentimes when you look around, the other people are there for the same reason. They want to help solve the problem. So you're also finding some pretty cool people. And I've met a lot of people in my life that way through business and through church and other things. So really what attracted me to running for mayor and as the mayor is, when I ran for the first time 2 years ago, I think our city council was very dysfunctional, and there was and I thought we needed a new mayor. And I appreciate Becky Ames. I'd known her a long time, but I let her know that, hey, I'm looking to run for mayor. At that time, when I got started in the race, I didn't know who else would be running, but I just realized I felt like there was a problem in Beaumont. We're in a state that has 8 to 10 million people a year moving to Texas. We're the only city on Interstate 10 with a declining population. We have $80 billion worth of licensed and permitted work in Jefferson County happening in the next 10 years. We are in an economic boom in Southeast Texas, yet the city of Beaumont is declining. And it's declining and I know this without having to get a PhD or do a whole lot of studying, because I've been here and I'm in business here. We're an unattractive community to people that are moving in. And I say that because I do loans all over Texas and Louisiana, and but my office is here in Beaumont. And people come here, because industry brings so many people here. And I hear often that I can't live in Beaumont because of the schools. We got kids, and we don't want to be paying for private school, so we're going to look in these surrounding communities. I also hear, because I'm a pretty upbeat, positive guy. In general, that's just, I've determined in life that life's a whole lot better if you enjoy it every day, because every day to me is a gift from God.
Right.
So I'm not dreading any day. Every day is a Friday to me. Every day is a good day, and I'm excited that it's happening and what's going to be before me. And so I would have customers. I still have customers that are moving to town, and they say, it's the weirdest thing here, because when I like Beaumont, some of them, they may be moving from New Orleans, or they may be moving from Oklahoma City or Dallas or Houston or wherever. And they're moving from where traffic congestion's bad. It takes an hour and a half just to go to the grocery store.
Right.
They don't have a river right in their backyard, or a beach an hour away, or a lake an hour and a half away, a national forest right up the road, and 30 minutes away. We've got a lot of things here. We've got a port. We've got lots of work, and we have a good quality of life here. But people come from big cities, and people say, I meet people here in Beaumont, and they say, why would you move to Beaumont?
Right.
And it's like people in Beaumont don't appreciate what we have. And so the reason I'm running for Beaumont is I know Beaumont's a great place. But I know we need to remember that, and we need to talk about that, and we need to help each other make this community better. I know with the school district, I've been a business partner with BISD schools for about 6 years now. And in doing that, I've got well acquainted with a lot of the administrators, the board members. I'm a big proponent of BISD.
Right.
Okay. And if Beaumont is going to thrive, BISD needs to thrive. It's that simple. And there are people in Beaumont that have dismissed BISD and say, it doesn't matter. It's not relevant. It can't be good. And I give them, I carry on my phone right here the link in notes to where you volunteer, and I'll just text it to them as we're talking. I say, well, why don't you volunteer? It's real simple. Just fill out that link. And if you get in schools, you're going to find that the teachers and the administrators, I think they're better than when I was in school. And not because I didn't have good teachers or any of that, but it's just harder. It's a different world. So the people that are there are more committed. But as we see on social media, oftentimes within Beaumont, we talk so badly about our own district.
Absolutely.
Where it makes it hard to even hire teachers or hire substitutes, because, you know, people want to be proud of the organization they're a part of. And when it gets beat up a lot, it just makes it less attractive to even be a part of. So so in saying that, I'm not running for school board. And sometimes people say, well, you know, why is that? I said, well, because I believe the city of Beaumont needs to partner with BISD, needs to partner with Lamar University and LIT and churches in these 501c3s that we already have that are doing great work in the communities, but don't have enough resources, don't have enough facilities, don't have enough volunteers.
Right.
On Sunday morning, we got plenty of people in churches in Southeast Texas. And we need to all work together and talk about our problems together. I noticed back then, and I'm not blaming this on one person. This isn't a personal thing for me. It's just that I see that Beaumont, if we all get in the same boat and row in the same direction and quit worrying and saying, well, the school don't have anything to do with the city of Beaumont. Well, that's just hogwash. But if you watch our city council, you would think that our city and our school district don't have anything to do with one another. And yet, as long as BISD's got a bad rap, it affects Beaumont. If the city of Beaumont has a bad rap for its crime, it affects BISD. It all affects Lamar University as well and LIT, and it affects us all. And we need to come together and say, look, we have more in common than disagreement. I mean, most cities that thrive, they see other cities as their competition. You know, so they might look at Lufkin or Longview or Waco or Tyler or Baytown. Hey, say that's our competition. When I'm in Beaumont and I'm visiting across the neighborhood associations, across the community, and I've been all over Beaumont, and because I'm running to be a better mayor for the entire city of Beaumont. But I will tell you, whether it's the north end, whether it's the west end, whether it's the south end, whether it's Old Town, everybody thinks everybody else gets a better shake in the city than they do. And therein lies a big problem, because we're working against each other. Right. You know, we don't even realize that we're not ever going to get better, and we're not ever going to be attractive, and people aren't ever going to want to move to Beaumont if we just sit here and bicker within ourselves. We all want the same things. We all want a better city. We all want lower crime. We want our kids safe. We want them to have things to do. But we oftentimes end up spending a lot of time talking about what we disagree with, when if we were talking about what we agreed on, perhaps we could figure out a solution that works for the whole city. And I'm not, and like I said earlier about the problem, I understand these are big problems. If they were easy problems, they'd have been solved a long time ago. Right. But the only way to solve a problem, from my experience, whether it's my marriage, whether it's within my family with kids, whether it's in business, whether it's in church, is to talk about the problems and enter into the discussion with the ability of having your perception changed. Your idea changed. I know for me, I'm 62 years old. As I said, I am Roy West. Okay. The windshield that I've seen life through, how I've gone through life, is through my eyes. Right. I had never been Deborah Jones. Right. You know, I had never been anybody else. Right. And you hadn't been either. Right. I mean, we can only be who we are. That doesn't make us bad. We just always have to understand that we don't see everybody else's perspective. So when we sit down on these challenges and issues that we have to be willing to say, how do you see this? And be able to listen to what that other person's experience has been, and then weigh that and recognize, because for a better Beaumont, first of all, I want my grandkids to be able to stay here, for this to be a community they want to be in.
Right.
And I don't see the world through a 7-year-old's eyes or a 6.5-month-year-old eyes.
Exactly.
And so we've got to invite everybody to the table, and we've got to be willing to listen to them. And I think over the last several decades, we have not done a good job of that. And I think a lot of cities hadn't, because they hadn't had to. They could continue to do things the way they've always done them. But whether it's church, whether it's work, there's very few things that you get to do the same way you've always been able to do them. There's been lots of changes in the world, and you've got to be able to change with that. And, stop me if you want to ask questions, but I can talk about several of the issues and the things that I see as challenges and what I would like to see changed.
Right.
I mean, whether it's, go ahead.
No, I was getting ready to say, great minds think alike, because I think you already came into my house and looked at my notes and know what I was getting ready to ask you.
Well, I mean, there is no question off limits with me, because it's funny. Sometimes people ask me questions and apologize because they think they're going to offend my sensibilities or whatever. I don't know, but I'm inviting myself to be the mayor of Beaumont, and now the people have to vote on that, and I want them to know who I am and why I'm running, and some issues that I'll point out real quick. I've gone to all the neighborhood association meetings, but one that stands out in contrast is the Amelia Neighborhood Association meeting. I went, and for the first 50 minutes, they were talking about their sewer problems in the city. Yes. They've had them a long time, and other areas have us too. But that was the same thing they were talking about 2 years before that.
Yes.
And so we had a couple of city councilmen there that were elected that were there, and I like them and respect them. We had several candidates. We had the city manager there, Kenneth Williams, and the city councilmen. They both pretty much said the same thing. They said, "Look, we're spending millions of dollars fixing this problem. We got a new city manager that's been here just a few months, and he's going to do a great job. And we're fixing this problem. It's gonna be better." Okay. And that was that was what they said. So when I got up there, this is what I said. So I've been a little bit disruptive. Okay. I'm admitting this, because I said, this seems like deja vu to me. I said, I was here 2 years ago and y'all were talking about your sewer problems. And I said, and they were saying they were going to fix them. And I said, look, I'm not blaming one person. And, we got a new city manager, and I hope he's the best city manager Beaumont ever has. And I mean that sincerely. I said, but at that point, he'd been here 5 months. I said, he's been here 5 months. I said, I've been here 62 years. I'm not asking you to vote for me for mayor, but for any other reason, then I want to hear about your problems. And I expect the mayor and the city council to hold our administration accountable. And I said, to me, in my business, when somebody calls me and asks me for a mortgage, I don't tell them, hey, we're the best that you're ever going to get. We have the best rates. We have the lowest fees, and you need to use us for our mortgage. And then they say, okay, how quick can you get pre-approved? And if I told them, well, I don't know when we can get you pre-approved, it may take weeks, it may take months, but we're the best, people would hang up on me and they would call somebody else, because they want to get a mortgage and they need an answer. They need to know when. Exactly. And so I'm used to timelines. And what I went on to say is, at that meeting, is I said, the one thing I didn't hear is, when is your sewer problem going to get fixed? And I said, what I think is, I live in a world where there's transparency, where there's trust, where there's respect, accountability. Because if I don't have that in my business, I'm going to be out of business. If
Right.
I don't do what I say I'm going to do in the time frame that I say I'm going to do it, I'm going to go out of business. Yet the city wants us to believe that, hey, we're spending more money. They're not telling you that you're scheduled for your sewer line replacement 3 years from today, 5 years from today, or 6 months from now. I said, to me, that would be something, because then you can start holding people accountable. You may not like their timeline, but you have a timeline. And right now, the city, on so much of what they do, they talk about what they're going to do and how much better it's going to be, but they don't give you any timelines. They don't give the citizens any timelines, because if they do, you can hold them accountable.
Exactly.
And I think, and sometimes timelines move, but you can say why they're moving. I mean, in my business, we say, look, we're going to close your loan in 30 days. Now, if there ends up needing to be repairs on the house, that's not on us. So it may move the timeline on closing, but people know why it's happening. If there's a title issue, we let them know, hey, there's a title issue. It has to get resolved. They have to get some heirs that live out of state to sign some documents. So that may, delay closing. But we're keeping people informed. But people can have an expectation on what's happening because they're planning their lives on it. And with the city, what I don't see is setting realistic expectations, being transparent, letting people know. And this is true when it comes to digging out ditches, when it comes to water line repairs, when it comes to road repairs. If you're going to fix something, you got to have a plan on when you're going to fix it. Right. And when you don't tell people what that plan is, there's only one reason you don't. There's only one. And I'll hold this out to anybody that's there. It's either because you don't have a plan, so that means it ain't going to get fixed anytime soon, or you don't think the people are going to like the timeline you're telling them. And I think both those excuses are unacceptable. I think you need to have a plan, even if the plan is, if you're telling somebody, hey, we're not going to be able to fix your sewer line for 5 years. Now, they may vote everybody out of office, and maybe they'll end up getting a different result, but that's the truth, if that is the truth. But when you don't give people timelines, then they just go about, I think it leads to voter apathy. I think it leads to people not voting because it doesn't matter. I keep getting told these rosy, flowery things, but nothing changes.
Right.
I had the city council guys afterwards ask me, say, Roy, you're not running against my spot. Why'd you throw us under the bus? And I said, man, I didn't throw you under the bus. I said, wouldn't you like to know when this is going to be fixed? Shouldn't that be something that the city council can expect to know? I said, I'm not throwing anybody under the bus. I'm saying you got to ask for it in order to give it. But I don't see us asking for it. And that's what I want to do. I want people to know, and it doesn't matter whether you live in the north end, whether you live in the south end, whether you live in Old Town or the west end, when you call, you ought to get a response that there is some accountability on. That if they tell you something and they don't do it, everywhere else in life, in your family, in your church, in your business, in your organizations, there's accountability. If people don't toe the line, you get rid of them. And, the same ought to be true in the city and within city departments. And I'm not against anybody. I don't think you can hold people responsible that you're not expecting things from. And I haven't seen that asked from our council and I think as our mayor, as our leader of the city, that would be the kind of thing that I'm going to be talking about. I'm going to be talking about our youth initiatives in this city. We have too many unsupervised youth in this city that are running the roads at night. They're getting in trouble. Our most violent offenders in this city are 12 to 17 years old. Yet we as a community, we're not providing activities for them. We may complain that they're out pulling doorknobs in neighborhoods, seeing if cars are locked, and when you go to neighborhood associations, you hear about it all the time, but we're not offering midnight basketball leagues. Well, my deal is, why not? We need to, if we want different results from our kids, we need to offer them different alternatives. And the fact that we have unsupervised kids in our community, which is not unusual, it happens in other communities, other cities across this country. We can either ignore it and say it's going to fix itself, which I just don't see that happening, or we as a community can show up and partner, much with the same coalition that I was talking about. Other schools, they've got lots of facilities. Churches, they have facilities. They have volunteers. They have resources. Lamar University and the city. I mean, we need to show up for one another. So when I'm asking people to vote for me for mayor, I'll tell them straight up, if you vote for me for mayor and you're not willing to get involved, nothing's going to change. But I'm going to invite you all to the party. I'm going to say we all need to show up, because if we want a better Beaumont, we got to be a better Beaumont. We got to be a better Beaumont for our kids, our youth that are growing up without supervision. We need to provide them alternatives, and we need to show up for our schools. We need to show up for our departments and show them that they're important. But we also want to have realistic expectations on when things are going to get fixed. And yeah, there is a limited pile of money, and we don't, because if I get elected on May 6th, the city's not going to have more money just because I get elected. But I do believe that you can improve efficiencies in departments and make things better if you are being transparent, if you are looking for solutions to the problem, much like what I was talking about with whether it's ditches getting cleaned out, whether it's streets being repaired, is let's set deadlines on when they're going to happen. And if they don't happen, let's hold people accountable. But let's set realistic expectations. It's that simple. I mean, we've got lots of how many miles have we replaced of sewer line? How many more miles do we have to go? How many can we get done in a month? And then also track how we're doing. On a month that it rains 2 weeks out of the month, you're probably going to get half the work done in a month that has 4 weeks of sunshine. But why don't you show us that too? Because maybe that's not always the case. Maybe we're not being as efficient as we ought to be. But if we showed all that, we're showing people, hey, we're doing the best we can. Matter of fact, we're really good at it. Because look at how other cities, how long it takes them to replace this amount of sewer line. We're better than other cities. And so these departments, they can hold their head high. I know I've been probably talking for 25 minutes straight, so I'll let you ask some questions. I apologize.
That's okay. That's okay. It make it interesting. But I heard you talk about crime. I heard you talking about infrastructure, and that's my excuse me. That's my main thing right there, infrastructure. Because you talked about my area, and there has been a lot of times. There have been a time when they fixed 3 or 4 streets over from my street, and they didn't come on my street or the street behind me, and that was my biggest issue. Why is it that our area is not being fixed? My street is not being fixed, but you went 3 streets over. I've had city councilmen on, and I talked to them about that. What's going to happen? Are you guys going to push it that if they come this way or what? So not the mayor is over everybody. Am I right?
The mayor that's exactly right. They're like the CEO of the board of directors.
Yeah, like the CEO. So this is my thing is on infrastructure. Why is it that infrastructure is so hard, terrible in just my area? Not in just my area, because it's all over Beaumont. In my area, but I'm talking about my area because that's where I live. So we can't press the issue here in Beaumont and get these streets fixed?
Well, I think we have to have a plan to do it. And the interesting thing to me, this is how I would say your question should have been answered, is they should have been able to give you a timeline on when they are going to fix your street or your sewer line or whatever, because the only way it's ever going to get fixed is if they have a plan to do it and a timeline to do it. So when they're not giving us a timeline, and I said this earlier, but I say this just because it's the simple truth. There is nothing difficult about what I'm saying. This is not smoke and mirrors. And my deal is, I'm not saying people will like the answers because I don't know all the answers.
Right.
But I do know that they have to have a plan in order to fix it. And they ought to have a date on when they plan on starting. And if they don't have a date, what they can tell you is at that point, which we'd see if it would change who people would vote for, is we don't have a date when we're going to fix your street or fix your sewer, because we don't have a plan that far yet. Well, that would upset you, right?
No.
And if they have a plan, then why don't they give you a date?
Right.
I can't answer that question for you, but if I become mayor of Beaumont, I tell you, I will ask that question every day in the city departments. I'm not going to ever be I'm not ever going to be the parks director. I'm not ever going to be the director of all that.
Mm-hmm.
We have people for that. But if we set the expectation, when we ask these questions, we want specific timelines.
Yeah.
And if, they may say, hey, Roy, these are great questions. We don't have this answer out. My question would be, how long do you need? What do you need? 30 days? Do you need 60 days? Do you need 120 days? But I want a plan with timelines.
Mm-hmm.
Because the only way this is ever going to get fixed is if we have a plan. Right. And I don't think anybody can disagree with me on that, because it takes a plan. And if you have a plan, you got to have a timeline. If you don't have a timeline, nothing ever gets done. You can talk about things, we can sit here and talk about anything and all the problems associated with it. But if we don't have a timeline to come up with the next solution, and when we take the next step, guess what? It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And I'll throw out another deal, and I'm sorry, because you just hold your hand up if you want me to stop. I don't mind talking. I went to the Homeless Coalition meetings for probably 2 years straight. It's been happening 3.5 years. Homeless Coalition,
Mm-hmm.
the city of Beaumont. I think everybody would agree we have a homeless problem in Beaumont.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And when I went to this Homeless Coalition, I was very excited about it. And one reason I was excited is you had all these different organizations that serve the homeless. They're 501c3s. Some of the people that lead these ministries were homeless 8-10 years before that. These are people that love Jesus Christ. They are in it every day, attempting to help the homeless, meeting needs of the people. And that being said, I discovered going to these meetings that these different groups who are all working to make things better couldn't agree on solutions, right?
Right.
They would be on different ends. And and oftentimes when you're dealing with problems, that's where things just stay. They stagnate there. Because what happens is, oftentimes when you come up with solutions, there's going to be unhappy people.
Mm-hmm.
And right now, everybody's unhappy, but nobody, there's no decision made, so there's nobody really to be mad at. Well, in my opinion is, when you have such coalitions, you need to say, look, and come up with a time frame and let them help you, whether it's 30 days or whether it's 120 days. I want y'all to come up with a plan of action that we're gonna go with, and we as this organization are going to stand behind after 90 days. We're going to do something. We're going to do something different, because what we're currently doing is not working. We all agree on that. Now, what we're going to try, we hope will work. But if it doesn't work, guess what? We'll cross that off our list and we'll try something else, because that's exactly what happens in business, in family, in church. There's things we try all the time that don't work. And we don't say we're a failure. We say we're going to try something different. I think the city sometimes worries about failing. And my thing is, so if you choose something to do on how to approach the homeless challenge in our community, some people aren't going to like that. And I realize that. I'm not naive to think all these solutions are going to make everybody happy. But what I think can really happen is you can start making progress, or you can find out what doesn't work. It's just like with what you're asking right now. If I get elected mayor, I'm not saying your sewer is going to get fixed or your street's going to get fixed right away. I don't know when it's going to get fixed. But what I'm saying is we're going to find out a timeline. And if that's an unacceptable timeline, then we're going to lay everything out and let you see and look at what other solutions exist. And we may find that there's not another good solution right now.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not a good thing, but it is a real thing.
It's a real
And people need to know the truth. So that's kind of my approach. It doesn't mean that everybody's going to be holding hands, singing Kumbaya, feeling like everything's okay all the time. But it's a lot better in life that when you know the truth and you understand, and there's real accountability, and you understand that there's problems other places too that are being worked on, and why the priority is what it is. Sometimes you have to build a lift station before you fix the sewer line or whatever else. Whatever that is, let's explain it. Let's talk about it.
Okay, let's go to my listening viewers because they're listening right now, and one of them have a question. One of them have a statement right now. What she said, Erin says that yes, Beaumont has a lot to offer. She says she loves her hometown. But Wolverine says, what are you going to do to make some of the things better that you think are so bad?
Well, and it's the only way we can. The only way, usually with the mayor. I've been talking about what I'm going to do is I want to have true trust, true accountability, and true transparency. So the things that we know are challenging, let's come up with solutions, and let's identify the solutions and what steps we're going to take to solve that problem. If she can be more specific, I'll certainly try to address it more specifically. But I mean, I think what frustrates people the most is, the not getting a solution. It's we can all talk about on Facebook, people talk about all the time, all the problems.
Right.
But rarely are people talking about solutions with that. They just kind of continue to pile on and all agree, hey, we're all in agreement. This is a big problem. Well, it's not hard to figure out what problems are. Where it becomes a little bit more challenging is being a part of the solution. And that's what I want to do. But you have to be transparent. And I don't think our current city is very transparent about how our city departments work, or working with our school district, or working with Lamar University, or working with our churches. They seem silent on those areas. And I think we can be vocal and we can work together. And I think all of those entities are happy to work together if given the opportunity.
The question was asked, how do you plan to reach minorities?
Well, the only way I know how to reach anybody is to show up and be present. And so I've been going across this community, and I'm going to everything I'm invited to. And one thing else I want to do that I had suggested in my first campaign 2 years ago, and I stand by to this day. We need to have evening city council meetings, because right now, when I go to neighborhood associations, when I go to meet and greets or whatever I'm going to, they're all in the evening. That's why I'm having to do the show in the afternoon. But, because there's a lot going on in evening time, but there's not a whole lot going on in the middle of the day because most people are working.
Right.
And so they don't have neighborhood association meetings or HOA meetings in the daytime that I've been to. All of them have been in the evening. All my meet and greets for people to come meet me have been in the evening, because that's when people are off work. So I think, having an evening meeting for your city council, so that, and I've been told, well, more people aren't going to come. Well, it's not so much whether any more people come, it's more accessible for people to come. Yes. And I have been going across the community, showing up in churches across the community, in parks across the community, to all the things I'm in. And I'm going to continue to do that, because for us to be better together, there's only one way to do that. and that's to be together. If we're not together, if we're not showing up, if we're not having conversations like this, it's not just going to happen.
Okay, so another question was asked. I hear so much about revitalization of downtown, and I think we need to revitalize the entire city, not just Dowling Road. But what is your day one top priority?
Well, that's a great question, Aaron, and thank you for asking it.
Thank you,
And
Aaron.
and sometimes I need to rephrase things. We've got department head, we've got a city manager, we've got 2 assistant city managers, we have department heads over every department. In many of those departments, then we have managers, then we have supervisors, and then we have workers. So my thing is, I want accountability and transparency in all of those departments, every single department. I want them to show us how good they're doing, how they plan on doing better, and then show us the timelines on how they're going to do that. I'm not picking one department because we have people that work in all these departments, and I think all of them are capable of great things. But the only way we're going to revitalize our city, because what I hear her asking is, I know as a mortgage person, one of the biggest problems is we're an unattractive city because of how we respond.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you get on social media, you Google crime in Beaumont, you know, things are bad. We need to do better, and we need to show people we're doing better through our transparency, through our accountability of what we're doing in the city. I think that builds trust, that changes the dialogue, it changes the conversation with people, and people will begin to invest. But people aren't going to invest a lot of money if they don't feel like the town is going in the right direction.
Exactly.
If they feel like the school district's failing and it's not going to get better, and they feel like crime's getting worse, and they feel like sewer system's not improving and roads aren't improving, they'll go to other places where the narrative's better. So I don't think we can revitalize things if we don't get better at being honest, being transparent, and being accountable to the citizens and being available, much like I'm doing right now with this podcast, is answering the questions, having evening council meetings. You know, I'm having meet and greets all the time. People can check my Facebook page where it's open to the public and people can come and ask questions. And I invite them asking questions that they think I might be offended by, because there's not any question I'm offended by. I mean, there may be questions I had never heard, but they all deserve an answer.
Yeah.
And we as a city, everybody, you know, we pay taxes for this city to function well, and we need to be proud of how it's functioning. And I think if we do a better job of our accountability and transparency, people will have more trust. Our economy will grow. Our school district will grow. You know, people will be investing because we got a lot of money in Southeast Texas. I started off the show with $80 billion worth of licensed and permitted work in Jefferson County in the next 10 years. There's lots of great jobs here. We got to help the kids get it. We got to help them plan for it. We've got to, and the city needs to be a part of that. We don't need to leave that just to the school district. The churches need to be a part of it.
Right.
There's 501c3s already doing it. I'm talking about charitable organizations. We all need to work together for that.
Right.
But we need to do it in the same boat, rowing in the same direction, talking about the same things, and agreeing that there are real solutions to difficult problems.
Okay, so Milton LaMelle wants to know, what volunteer organization have you participated in prior to 2019?
Well, American Cancer Society, Gift of Life. I've been on Crime Stoppers and served as chair many times. Because I've been here, if she asks about a specific one, I'll bet I've participated in that, because, you know, I MC events. I serve on public relations committees, having had the radio show. I don't have my CV printed in front of me, but there's very few organizations I hadn't worked with directly in terms of 501c3s. And well before 2019, I've been here a long time. And my thing is, ask different organizations, because you can be in an organization. Are you contributing, and what are you doing?
Right.
And I mean, so it's also in terms of what you've done. And before my son-in-law came into the business, I worked 55, 60 hours a week every week in the mortgage business. So I certainly am spending a lot more time now because I have the time.
Right.
But when you're spending those kind of hours, just like many people are today, there's less time they have to volunteer.
Right. So what is your greatest fear as becoming a mayor?
I don't have any fear about becoming a mayor. I'm looking forward to the opportunities that are before us, because I think if we confront the opportunities and do what we're doing right here, have dialogue, and people that are concerned about those problems, invite them to participate in the solution. And then you're going to have city departments that are over those that they need to be a part of. So having dialogue and having conversation, currently how, things happen on council, which, people show up with a problem and they get to talk about it for 3 minutes, and then they're told, but they say, it's not on the agenda, we can't talk about it.
Right.
Well, that's not very satisfying to people.
Mm-mm.
But if you have these problems and you have coalitions in the city where there are meetings on those coalitions, where you have department heads there, you have city council representatives, and then you have people in the community that have those concerns, and they're all invited to participate, then you can talk about them, because that's why you're there. And I think on many issues, we need to address it exactly like that.
Right.
We need to form coalitions where our council people and your mayor can be there, where the department heads that problem deals with are there, and then the public is there. And you can have those in various locations of the city. You make them public meetings because it's a public hearing discussing that, but then you can actually have discussions and about the solutions on how you're going to solve these problems that are before us. And
Right.
Some of them aren't easy solutions, but we ought to be having the conversations in the neighborhoods and making it available so that council people are there, department heads are there, and the public are there. And having more than one, because we have community centers all over that the city owns all over this town, and open them up so that we can have those conversations and get the word out on Facebook and through the media and through our council meetings and through people that we know are concerned about those problems, to say, hey, be here at this time and we're going to talk about it. And don't just come angry, because these meetings are about realizing we already got a problem. Let's come with what are some of the solutions, and hopefully have your city departments ready with some solutions, but also the citizens on how they think it can be better. What would make me feel better with that problem,
Right.
that I'm seeing in my community?
Okay, Aaron also say, thank you, Aaron. Mildred, thank you guys. Appreciate y'all. What are your thoughts on recruiting good and well-trained officers to Beaumont and addressing the shortage in law enforcement, as a great deal of our crime is outside influences that trickle in on I-10?
Well, and Aaron, you could be a reporter. You're doing a good job. And I think one way we can do better with recruiting is getting kids, reaching out to kids earlier. Now, if you start talking to kids in junior high about being a firefighter or being a policeman here in Beaumont, and the opportunities and how you get there quicker, that doesn't solve your problem next year, but it might help solve your problem 7, 8, 9 years from now. But I think how the problems are going to be solved, sometimes the solutions, there's not an immediate one. We're doing certain things, but we certainly need to look at our hiring practices, both with fire and police. There are civil service tests that people have to take, but explaining to people the process, explaining at an earlier age too, and also helping mentor people in how they can accomplish this. Also letting them know, how much money they can make in these different careers as well. Because, it's not an easy solution, but if we keep doing things, what I have found in my business in the last 20 years, it's changed really significantly 3 or 4 times. And in any of the times, I'm all about progress, but I'm like many other people. When you talk about change, it's like, whoa, I'd just soon not do that. I'm used to doing it this way. I'm going to have to do it this way. Well, the good thing about my business is it's real simple, Roy. You either do it this way or you're not in business anymore. So it's not a matter of whether I like it. It's a matter of, well, if I want to stay in business, I have to learn this new technology. I have to do it these new ways. I think the difference with the cities, and it's not just Beaumont, it's happened across this country, and you can look at it, is sometimes cities are slower to change and embrace new technologies, new ways, looking at other cities on how they have improved their hiring practices and attracted more people. But if you keep doing it the same way you've been doing it 5-10 years ago, and you're expecting a different result, I'm saying shame on you. Because if you wanted to get a different result from what you're getting, you have to go out and oftentimes not create it, a new wheel. Go out and look at who's doing it better and see how they're doing it. Yeah. And model that, because most of the things we're talking about, the problems we have in Beaumont, Texas, aren't problems unique to Beaumont, Texas. They existed other places, and there's other places that have died. They've done worse. There's other places that have done better. Let's look at the ones that have done better, that have made improvement, and say, hey, how'd y'all do that? And then, okay, it's different, but maybe we need to do something different, a new approach to get a different result. So I think it's a fair question, but it's going to require looking at innovative ways.
Right. Milton LaMelle says there should be a citywide meeting regularly as well as a neighborhood meeting to create unity.
I agree with that 110%. And I think they start, one thing that I would love to see is evening council meetings, because then it becomes a lot more accessible to the public to come to. And then at least once a quarter, have city council meetings in the different wards, and let whoever is that ward representative be the host of that meeting, and then have that there. But then also, when you create these coalitions, whether it be about youth initiatives, whether it be about sewer, whether it be about drainage, whether it be about roads, whether it be about crime, is have coalitions where you also have council and city departments involved, but public meetings scattered throughout the city that aren't city council meetings per se, but they're public hearings. And you've got the ear of the council. All the council can be there if they so choose. They don't have to be. It's not a council meeting, but you get to see who shows up. That's for sure. Your department heads would have to be there. And then you invite all the people that have an interest in crime or in new youth initiatives or in homelessness to these meetings. And you say, hey, what are we going to do next? What are some solutions? Not just the fact that we got a problem. We know we got problems in all those areas, but what are some solutions? And clearly the city ought to be coming with some, but we ought to be listening to the people out there too, that when we talk about our solutions, if they say, well, that's really not much of a solution. Because when you tell me you're spending tens of millions of dollars on fixing a problem, but you still can't tell me the date my problem is going to be fixed, that to me feels a lot like smoke and mirrors. I'm not saying it is smoke and mirrors. I'm just saying I like dates. I like numbers, because those 2 + 2 always equals 4. If you show me 2 + 2 and tell me that it equals 8, I know you're not telling me something right.
Right.
And also, if I say that something's got to be done in 90 days and it's not, or say it's 2 years from now, you still can hold me accountable. You may not like the timeline, but I gave you a timeline. And I'm saying, okay, I can't do any better than that. And usually, you know, that's going to come from our city departments, but we can look at our efficiencies to see if there's ways we can do it better. You know, if we're talking about more bonds, the whole city would need to be a part of that. And they would have to know where we're spending that money from and where and when would it get fixed? All of those kind of things. So I think there can be multiple solutions. A lot of solutions people don't want to talk about because, you know, oftentimes if you want to fix things quicker, it just takes more money. And where's that money going to come from? Well, we may decide, well, all right, we can wait 5 years to fix that because we don't want a tax increase or we don't want to do a bond. And that's fine. But if you're laying out the whole plan and you're telling people how the money is getting spent, at least you're being honest about it and you're giving people an honest expectation of when that problem is going to get fixed.
Okay, because we have a couple more minutes left. So I want to ask this question. What distinguishes you? We have 3 people running for mayor. So what distinguishes you and make you the best candidate from the others? And why should I vote for you?
Well, one reason is I love to do this, and I think the mayor needs to be a part of doing this more. You've got to be accessible, you've got to be willing to discuss the problems, and you've got to be present. You know, I go to all the events that I can, any that I'm invited to, whether or not, I mean, anybody can invite me to anything. If I'm available, I'm going because I realize I need to earn everybody's respect and their vote. So you've got to be willing to be engaged in dialogue with people. And you also got to realize you don't have all the answers because none of us do. Yeah. We've got, you know, and we've got to be willing to be changed by the conversations that we're having with people. And then we also have to realize that the same old way of doing things isn't necessarily the best way to do
them. Mildred says, "What?" I'm sorry, I should throw it to you. She said, "What do you think would entice more people to vote? Percentage of voters is always low. Always.
It is
always.
It is tragic how few people vote in municipal elections, but I think it gets back to what exactly what I'm.
This election is more. It means more to Beaumont than the national election. The vote for president. This is our city.
And we'll be lucky. We'll be lucky if we get 1 in 4 registered voters to vote in this city election. That would be a very high turnout. Okay. So I think what's happened is because people don't believe anything's going to change. They've been being told the same thing for so long. Mm-hmm. People get apathetic and they say, it doesn't matter who's mayor. You know, it doesn't matter. Nothing's going to change. And I believe that it does matter. I'm running because I think we can make a difference. We can improve things. But also what I'm talking about is disruptive. Mm-hmm. And not disruptive from a disruptive sake. It's a disruptive deal because I want us to have real timelines. I want us to be really accountable and really transparent. And if that happens, people aren't going to be happy. I'm telling you this now. I know it because the truth of the matter is we've got big problems in Beaumont. But if we identify what the problems are and set realistic expectations, then we can start judging people on the real merits of what they're doing, including me, who's running for mayor. I mean, my thing is I get that, you know, elected officials don't want timelines because then you can hold them accountable. And in 2 years, they're going to be running for office again. And you say, well, you hadn't solved this. And their deal is, I'm a lot closer than I was. Okay, well, you want to believe them. So you vote for them again. And 2 years later, I'm a lot closer than I was. Well, the problem feels like it's the same to me. I mean, I ask people, how much better is their situation than 2 years ago? How much better is it from 4 years ago? And if it hadn't gotten better, if you're voting for the same thing, then my thing is, then you're not helping the solution, because if we don't change things, if we don't do something different, you're going to continue to get the same results.
Yes. Yes. Okay, so the clock on the wall says it's 3 o'clock, and I'm very conscious of people's time, and I know you have a lot to do. So I really, really, really do appreciate you coming on Blue Table Talk tonight. Tonight.
thank you.
You doing it at nighttime.
Well, I thank you for your time.
Oh, yes. Yes, sir. And thank you guys for your questions. And I appreciate it as always. You always got to have my back on anything that I do. If I can help somebody that I pass along this way, then I know that my living is not in vain. Thank you, Roy West. I appreciate you. And we'll see
Thank
you
you, Deborah Jones. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Bye.